and welcome to the City of Austin's District 2 Candidate Forum. I'm Carol Eckelkamp with the League of Women Voters Austin area. Our league collaborates with the City of Austin Ethics Review Commission to help Austin voters connect with the candidates. Our goal is to pose questions that shed light on the views of the candidates regarding the issues that matter most to the community. As a local chapter of the League of Women Voters with members of all genders, we are a nonpartisan political organization founded over 100 years ago, and we continue to promote informed and active civic participation. Now, as a nonpartisan organization, we do not endorse candidates or parties. However, we do take positions on national and local issues after thorough study and analysis. We have only one candidate with us this evening, so our format is going to be a bit different. Candidate Fuentes and I will engage in a conversation to share her perspective on the issues that affect all of us in Austin. Our questions are created with input from community organizations, from government entities, and the public at large. The candidates do not see the questions in advance. Now, it's not too late to send in questions to forum@lwvaustin.org. That's FORUM at lwvaustin.org, because the mayoral candidate panel is next Thursday, October the 3rd, in the council chambers. We'd love for you to join us or tune in. These forums will also be available to view on the City of Austin's ATXN network, alongside all the recordings of City Council and Commission meetings. So let's begin. So, Candidate Fuentes, what do you love most about living in this community in District 2, and what specific actions have you taken to improve the area for its residents?
Thank you. And first and foremost, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting today's candidate forum and this opportunity for me to engage directly with the people of District 2. I really appreciate everything that the League of Women Voters does in our community, from voter registration to even having this platform available so that candidates can talk about our issues and priorities that are important to the communities that we seek to represent. What I love about District 2 is that, to me, this is a resilient community that has withstood several catastrophic and horrific flood events. It's a community that embraces our culture, that embraces hard work, that embraces family values, and it's one that I have been so honored and privileged to represent on council these last 4 years. And part of what I really pride myself is bringing City Hall into District 2. And so me and my District 2 team have made it our mission to regularly host town halls, community conversations, which are kind of office hour style setups, because we recognize that having community engagement should and can take different forms. And so that's been really important to me as a policymaker, is to not just rely on individuals getting to downtown, getting to City Hall. We live in the digital age. We have to make government more accessible to everyone.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask, you touched on a moment there. The City of Austin, we've experienced a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, several large-scale damaging weather events, and a very public conversation over policing in our community. What leadership skills do you have that qualify you to lead us through a similar future event?
What we know with climate change worsening is that we can anticipate and expect more severe weather events. And when I took office in 2021, within 6 weeks, we had our first winter storm. And so it was a crash course into providing disaster emergency management in the middle of me trying to navigate the City of Austin. And what I learned is that our local government has to do a lot more in strengthening our systems of response and ensuring that we have a more resilient community. So the skills that I carry as a leader is someone who has a record of service of delivering progress and change and positive improvements for District 2, as well as someone who cares about our community and understands that there are many barriers that our families face. We can't just rely on everything being digital. We can't just rely on people having access to transportation to get there. That's why it's so important that we build strong, robust systems within District 2, and that's what I hope to continue working on the next 4 years.
Thank you. So on the spectrum, let's talk, you mentioned a little bit about emergency management. Let's talk a little about the police. And on a spectrum from over-policed to neglected, Where do you see District 2 positioned? And if you believe improvements are necessary, what specific changes would you advocate for to better serve this district?
Absolutely. You know, what I know about community safety is that it is important that we have a safe community. And what safety looks like in District 2 is ensuring that we have access to parks, that we have robust youth programs available to our families, that we have street lighting available, safe streets, safe recreational spaces, or go hand in hand alongside community policing. And for me, it's important to mention that part first, because we know that if you have stable housing, if you have the ability to put food on the table, if you have strong safety net systems in place, one is less likely to commit crime. And so that is a key part of our approach to community safety, is really on the preventative side of things. And then also acknowledging that nationwide we are seeing staffing shortages in the police departments across our country. So it's been important for us to ensure that we remain competitive with our police department. We had a $15,000 recruitment sign-on bonus for cadets who join the police department and make it through. We also have, when negotiations went south between the police union and the City of Austin, City Council stepped up even when the union walked away from the negotiation table, and we ensured that we preserved pay, and in 1 year we actually increased pay. And so when we look forward at community safety, it's going to be important that we have a well-trained, well-resourced police department, well-staffed, as well as ensuring that we have strong oversight and accountability. Those are not mutually exclusive. We can do both.
So this is a citywide question, and we asked this at one of the other forums, is when the APD invited the Department of Public Safety in to help with tasks. How did you feel about that program? Was it a success, or did it have its challenges?
I mean, certainly there have been challenges within the police department. That's why I believe it's been important that to acknowledge that we have a new police chief. This is the first time in over a decade where the chief of police is a new perspective. She's coming from outside of our police department. And so we are really counting on her to help us lead some cultural change and some reforms that have been pointed out that are needed as part of our training and curriculum.
So you mentioned the parks, you mentioned the flooding event. So if District 2 has that history of flooding, particularly in the Onion Creek flood zone, and I know that significant efforts have been made by many organizations to create parklands in the area. Do you believe there is still more work needed to mitigate flood risks in the district? If so, what project would you prioritize?
100%. There is a lot more that the city can and should be doing for flood mitigation and improving our drainage infrastructure. It's why, to me, it was important that we go out for an environmental investment bond that includes specific funding for drainage improvement. We know that it's not a matter of if, but when we have the next big flooding event. And so these investments that we're making in our community are important. They matter, and we certainly need the funding to do so. I have been advocating very strongly to ensure that we get funding, particularly for the Brassy-Wood project, to ensure that we are improving our flood mitigation efforts.
So in continuing in that vein, do you feel there's enough to improve green spaces and walking trails for the public to use in District 2? Why or why not? And if not, what are your plans if you get reelected to increase such spaces and trails?
Well, I'm a big believer in a 10-minute city. Everyone in Austin, regardless of where you live, should be able to get to your nearby park, to your grocery store, to your doctor, to your pharmacy, all within 10 minutes and in the method of choice to get there. So whether it's car, walking, biking, public transportation, you should have those options available. But for many of us here in South Austin and Southeast Austin, that's not the reality. Many of our families don't have a park within walking distance. So are we doing enough to increase access to green space? We've certainly made some progress these last few years. And we have some exciting park developments happening right now at Grand Meadow Park and with Onion Creek Metro Park. But I would like to see more parks available throughout the district, particularly on the west side and in Del Valley.
So I like the 10-minute, and this is another question that could kind of tag onto that one, but it's about food insecurity. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a food desert is an area of land characterized by lack of access to nutritional and healthy foods like fresh produce due to physical distance to a grocery store. So we've asked about this problem in District 2 before, and have there been improvements? And explain why or why not, and what's contributed to the success or lack of success of this initiative to create no more food deserts.
You're so right. We shouldn't have food deserts in Austin. A city as prosperous as Austin, we should have all the areas should be able to get to a nearby grocery store and should have food access. Yet we have 1 out of every 5 families are food insecure. So it is a significant issue that we have. The progress that we've made and what we know is that in Del Valley in particular, HEB has purchased land, and we are anxiously awaiting for them to move forward and breaking ground. But I'm not one to just rest on my laurels and just say, okay, we're just going to wait. So on my first year on council, I brought forward a budget amendment where we were able to take pandemic relief dollars and explore the feasibility of creating a grocery store co-op. This is really, I see as a way that we can demonstrate how government can intervene in addressing food insecurity, as well as be innovative in that approach. And so that is ongoing. Through that work, they have already identified a location in Del Valley for the food co-op, and so we're making progress on that. Additionally, on the agenda for tomorrow's council meeting, we have another place-based incentive program that we hope to leverage as another policy tool to incentivize retailers, grocery retailers, to go into underserved areas. And so we are poised to adopt that tomorrow. I've already have a meeting set up with HEB to ask them, will this make a difference in you moving along quicker? And so know that, and not just HEB, any grocer or any retailer who would like to come into our area, we certainly welcome.
So let's talk a little bit about city services. Okay, so if the city services, and this is a citywide question, okay, we've experienced explosive growth in the last decade. Do you believe that the city has done a respectable job of keeping up with the demands on our aging roads, bridges, sewers, water lines? Why or why not? Citywide.
No, we have not done a good enough job. And to be quite honest, there's incredible, in fact, award-winning processes in place at the City of Austin. We, at any given day, we are doing road maintenance at some part in the city. In fact, there's a map online where you can go in and you can see what part of your neighborhood is scheduled for maintenance and when it'll be scheduled for maintenance. But we have really big needs in our area, and particularly in the areas on the outer edge of our city that have been long time overlooked and underinvested in, which is why, council has in the past 7 to 8 years has initiated a number of mobility-related bonds where we are finally getting the funding to address some of our substandard streets, particularly on Ross Road. But we certainly need more funding. In District 2, the areas that need more funding that are substandard streets include Knuckles Crossing, Cullen Lane, Circle S, Bradshaw Crossing. These are projects in our district that need funding to move forward, that need repairs, and that will need a continued advocacy for.
So that was my next question, were there specific needs in District 2? So thank you for clarifying that. And in the budget discussions that have been held, are there enough funds allocated for District 2 to make those improvements?
So with roadway improvement projects, they are very long, tedious, and cost a lot of money. And we've been able to get funding for the preliminary engineering report, which is essentially the first step. But there are a number of other steps that are needed. So we will need additional funding to move forward on those streets. And I think, and on top of that, that's just on the city side. It is really important that we also ensure that developers and companies that come into our area who are building in our area are also contributing to improving our infrastructure. And we now have street impact fees, so we're ensuring that with any new development, if there's any added increase in traffic, that there's a fund that developers are required to pay into to offset the costs. So we'll ensure that we continue, as we develop as a city, that we continue to ensure that everyone is paying their fair share as part of as a growing city.
All right, I have a couple questions on transportation. One of them is district specific and the other is citywide. So the first one is district specific. Over the last 8 years, we've asked about the transportation needs in District 2. So have the millions of dollars in mobility bonds made improvements here? What is the most pressing need for transportation in District 2?
Yes, absolutely. We have seen significant progress on our mobility needs in our district. In fact, with Project Connect, we are one of the first areas to see investments through that initiative. We added the neighborhood circulator, the Dove Springs pickup, which is one of the most well-utilized neighborhood circulators in the city. That has been a Project Connect investment. We are poised in early next year to open up on the Purple Line, the Pleasant Valley Bus Rapid Transit. That is a north-south connection east of 35. That is the first north-south connection. So it's going to go from Mueller all the way down through Dove Springs to Easton Park to Goodnight Ranch. So those are a couple of public transportation projects that we've done in our district. But there's still so much more that we can and should be doing.
So we had a question come in about just citywide, and the question was, are we increasing residential density along Austin's traffic corridors without adequately addressing the strain on our already burdened roadways? For example, he was asking about prioritizing bike lanes, larger buses, and train systems to support this growth. So are we straining the roadways, or are we adding benefit?
Well, I think it's important that we add options and choice to families wherever they live in our city. And of course, we want to incentivize density along major corridors. We want to make it easier to live in the central core of our city, where we know folks are more connected to services, to amenities, to the things that make a community a community. But we have to ensure that we are balancing the needs of our community. And for many of us here in District 2, we've seen a lot of development happening along South Congress and South First. And so with those developments, it's important that we ensure that we have the safety in place. So that's going to be the traffic signals, the roadway lighting, as well as increased bus service.
So we had an environmental question come in, somebody that watches what the goals are. And it said the city's climate goals have been missed and new ones are suggested by various groups for 2030, 2035, and 2040, wanting a 75 to a 100% reduction of greenhouse gas. What climate goals do you envision for Austin, and what strategies do you propose to achieve them?
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm a big proponent of an environmental investment package, which will include additional funding for us to acquire land, to preserve land, to ensure that we are increasing our green space and increasing our parkland for all families to enjoy. Air quality is also top of mind for me as someone who has the airport in our district. We also have landfills east of 35, and so ensuring that we have robust climate measures in place is important, and one that I will continue to champion. Another initiative that is coming before council is the Austin Travis County Food Plan. We're bringing forward a companion resolution that also calls for increased investments in agriculture and preservation of land.
So you touched a little bit on development, and the question came in from some commercial developers, and it said that they quoted a recent study that found that Austin has the highest fees and the most lengthy building permitting process of any major Texas city. Is this something you would seek to fix, and if so, how?
Yes, and we have made progress. As part of that study that was done, as a result of the study that was done, the city then contracted out a firm to take a look at our processes within the Department of Development Services. They now have new leadership at Development Services, and so we have seen a cut down in turnaround and response time as part of the permitting and site plan application process. But there's still room for growth. In fact, one of the policies I brought forward last year was to make it easier to build child care centers throughout our city. Believe it or not, it's actually easier to build a dog park than a child care center in Austin. And so that's one example of how our regulatory processes have made it particularly challenging to have a community benefit in place. And by removing some of the zoning barriers, that we're talking about removing $10,000 to $20,000 worth of building and construction costs because we're saving those dollars through the rezoning process.
Speaking of zoning,
Yes.
let's we got quite a few questions in about the home initiative. So we know that Austin is pushing for high density housing by relaxing some of the deed restrictions on single family lots through that home initiative, allowing high density, high rise multifamily housing alongside single family homes using especially the DB90. Does this plan improve the quality of life across the city, or is it sacrificing the character of single family neighborhoods?
Well, I would say the home initiative was geared towards unlocking different styles of homes, different types of homes all throughout our city. And for us in District 2, where we have many duplexes and many apartments, what I hope we see in as part of Home Initiative is having our families have the ability to build a casita on their lot. Being able to build another home for your in-laws or for your children, or as a way to supplement income to be able to get by. But that's what the Home Initiative was focused on, was ensuring that we gave property owners, homeowners, choices in how they age in place. Now, what I think when it comes to community planning, it certainly needed and necessary, and we need to be strategic and wise in how we do housing in our city. That's why I'm a big proponent in ensuring that we have more dense communities along major corridors where we know there's going to be bus lines, or we know there's more public transportation options. So certainly it's going to be a balance. As part of the Home Initiative, there are regular reporting requirements. So each year we will see just how many new homes were built as a result of the zoning changes, and we'll carefully calibrate. And one more thing I want to add on the Home Initiative, another legislative accomplishment that I have that I'm really proud of is launching the Displacement Prevention Community Navigator Program. These are individuals that live in the neighborhood that are able to provide much needed assistance and resources to families to be able to help them navigate the city of Austin so that they're connected to the resources and programs that the city has available. What good does it do if we're changing zoning, but people don't know how to participate in programs that help you with your mortgage down payment, that help you with rental assistance, that help you do home repairs if you have an elderly parent. These are all great things that the city of Austin has to offer, but people don't know about it. And so the Displacement Prevention Navigators was an important component for us here in Southeast to help prevent displacement and to ensure that we're doing what we can to allow families to age in the city that we love.
So let's talk a little bit about the homeless population in Austin. And no area is untouched by the homeless encampments, but some communities bear a heavier burden. What, if any, specific challenges do you foresee in addressing the impact of homeless encampments on residents in District 2?
Well, certainly what we know with addressing our unhoused community is ensuring that they have access to much needed mental health services, that they have wraparound supportive services, and that we have the necessary robust continuum of care for individuals experiencing homelessness. This city has put a considerable amount of investments into our homelessness system of care, and we are just now seeing progress on that. By the end of this year, we'll have an additional 300 permanent supportive housing units available. These are homes that come with the mental health services, that come with the social work services, and that's going to be key. If we are truly committed to ensuring that homelessness is rare, brief, and non-reoccurring, we have to ensure that we have that safety net system in place.
So we had a question come in about it was from the concerns about the hotel properties that were acquired and the significant taxpayer investment involved in housing that a small portion of our people that experience homelessness. And the question was, should the city of Austin engage in real estate development to provide housing for its residents? Yes,
we should engage in not just for our unhoused community, but also in providing affordable homes for everyone. In District 2, we have 2 affordable housing developments happening that our City of Austin led. One of them will give us the largest community land trust in the city, which I'm incredibly proud of as well. And then the other is affordable apartmental homes. And so I do think there is a role, particularly for government, in providing affordable housing.
You know, we jumped right in since it's just you and I at the table, and we didn't give a lot of opportunity for you to tell the city and the people that do this recording who you are. And so I'm looking going, we just kind of skipped right over the introductions of candidate Fuentes. And there are people watching, and there will be people watching this recording that may be new to the district. So tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're running.
Thank you.
For this re-election.
Thank you. My name is Vanessa Fuentes. I've had the honor and privilege of representing District 2 on City Council these last 4 years, where I really focused on championing working families and addressing affordability. I'm proud to have a record of service for our community. We, as I mentioned earlier, have ensured that we regularly host town halls and community engagement. We're very active on social media because we believe that our government should be transparent, accountable, and accessible. And as part of bringing City Hall into District 2, we've really focused on ensuring that the priorities and needs of our district are addressed. And so as part of my effort of championing working families and addressing affordability, I've led on a number of initiatives related to expanding access to childcare and addressing food insecurity and raising the minimum wage for city workers, which was absolutely necessary because we had significant staffing shortages throughout our city. And if we want the City of Austin to deliver high quality, reliable, and consistent city services, we need to have the staffing to do so. And as a result of raising our minimum wage, we now have been able to address significant staffing shortages and have made great progress on that. I'm hoping for another 4 years on City Council, should I earn the support of my community once again, so that we can continue to address some of the significant challenges that we have in our city. And that, to me, top of mind is affordability, to ensure that we continue addressing homelessness, and that we really work on creating that 10-minute city so that everyone in Austin, particularly here in District 2, have access to the things that make a community, and that to me is parks, recreational spaces, your grocery store, your doctor, and your pharmacy.
So let's end the last question on let's talk about our children. I know that's been something that is near and dear to your heart and across the city, but considering the challenges faced by schools in many districts across Austin, what programs or initiative do you think would be most successful? And if I gave you $5 million, just wrote you a check for $5 million, how would you help the children across Austin?
That's such a great question. Well, also on this November ballot is a child care initiative that is being led by Travis County that proposition around expanding accessible, high-quality child care pass will have such a huge impact on our city, and particularly in District 2. We know that childcare is one of the largest household expenses. We have families paying anywhere between $1,200 to $1,800 for daycare per child, and that is unsustainable. It's unrealistic to have working families pay that amount. And so with this proposition, we'll be able to ensure that we are clearing the wait list of children that are currently waiting to get into daycare, and that we're also working with the business community to be able to incentivize employers to have more child care services provided, and that we're paying child care educators more because they deserve it. And as part of that initiative is funding for after-school programs. And we know that is a big piece of what we need in District 2 is having more available, affordable after-school programs for our children to participate in. And so that is one thing that we can be doing for our children. Of course, acting a lot more and making more progress on climate change and creating a more resilient community is also going to be a great investment for our children, and then ensuring that that we preserve the soul of Austin, what makes Austin such a wonderful community that we all love. We want to ensure that is part of the ethos that we maintain moving forward.
So if I had a question for you, why vote for you? In closing, why, if I lived in District 2, why would I vote for you for this election?
Well, I am someone who gets things done, and I have a record of getting things done for my community. In fact, every single week we post and include in our newsletter delivering for District 2, because that is how focused me and my team are, is ensuring that we continuously deliver for District 2. So for tomorrow, for example, on the City Council agenda, we have an item that will reduce the speed limit near Blazier Elementary, which we know will help ensure that we have safer crossings for our littlest one and have safer streets. But that is one example of what my community can depend on me for. Also top of mind is constituent services. That I know that the number one role I have as a city council member is ensuring that when a District 2 resident reaches out to our office, that they receive a timely response and that they have a positive interaction with their government. And that is my focus that I have as a community leader, and what I hope to do should I get the privilege for 4 more years.
Well, thank you. And she stepped off a plane, came straight to the airport. So let's give her a round of applause. Thank you for being with us this evening. And I'd like to close with this message for all of you. Those of you in District 2, you have the privilege to elect a representative and the obligation to hold them accountable once elected. To aid in making your decision, our nonpartisan voters guide for this election will soon be available online at www.lwvaustin.org in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese. The printed guide will be distributed in English and Spanish and available at most Austin public libraries. There are various voters guides for you to access around the city. The educational site is www.vote411.org. And if you go to that site, it will be live soon. You put in your address. And when you put in your address, your entire ballot, which this is a presidential election, so not only is candidate Fuentes on the ballot, but there's lots of other offices, including the President of the United States. So it's a very long ballot. And so you are able to mark that ballot online. You're able to write down your answers. You can take paper notes, printed documents, any printed voter's guide or newspaper, but you're not allowed under Texas law to bring wireless communication devices inside or within 100 feet of a polling location. And here's some dates to remember. In-person early voting begins Monday, August 21st, and ends Friday, November 1st. The election day is November 5th, and those polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. on Election Day. If you are in line at 7 p.m., you will get to vote no matter how long the line is. You will be allowed to vote. Curbside voting is available at all polling locations in Travis County. There are directional signs and phone numbers to call or how to get that at the curbside, and those directional signs are in all the parking areas. We appreciate your attention. We appreciate you, Candidate Fuentes, for coming in. Wherever you're listening or watching, please be a part of our great democracy and go vote. Thank you and have a good evening.